Well, hi guys. So here I have a photograph of the Peak Design lens strap I bought today. It's the leash. So go and check out my other videos and you'll see a review of this leash. Not a very long review, but it just shows you what's available. The reason I bought this is because it's nice and small. It's not too big, pretty comfortable, and it's the quick release. So it really helps, for what I need it for. So go and check it out anyway. Also, you can see that Peak Design make a load of other kit as well. Anyway, this shot here was shot with the RX10IV from Sony. Also, it was shot ISO 100, 1/3 of a second at f5.6. And you're probably thinking, 1/3 of a second, that's quite a long time for something, that's nicely lit and everything. Well, I was actually utilising the Rotolight EOS in constant lighting mode. It was actually in a softbox, utilising a reflector rather than a direct light. So, obviously, if I turned it around the other way, it would have been a lot harsher light, obviously a faster shutter speed. So, but I did it like this because it's on the tripod and I was obviously filming a video as well. So, just a different way of lighting. So, I just wanted to show you the difference between the ISO's range on the RX10 Mark IV. Obviously, it's 1-inch sensor, and obviously it suffers from noise. What can do in certain conditions. But if you've got a nice diffused light, by the looks of things, it's actually not as bad as people think. So let's have a look and see what we can do with a few different shots looking at different ISO. So like I said, this one is shot at ISO 100. Pretty sharp, maybe slightly overexposed in a couple of areas. But, it could have done with a little bit more depth up here, which would have been obviously ideal because it's a little bit soft where the depth of field disappears. You can see a little bit of sand here has actually come off my other straps, the old straps where I'd been down the beach. But yeah, other than that, it's a photo. It works. It did its job. If we open another shot here, same shot, I've just adjusted the shutter speed and the ISO. The f-stop is exactly the same. So this is shot with ISO 800, so it's 1/15 of a second, and ISO 800 f5.6. Actually doesn't look too bad. It's a bit blown out here, so obviously in RAW we can just drop it down, and obviously probably want to drop the blacks down a little bit to remove, because there is a bit of noise and grain up here that's starting to appear. The actual fabric part and everything as well is actually not too bad. We could drop the blacks down a little bit just to lose the grain up there, and it looks pretty good. Not really going to do anything much about it. We could go into noise reduction, which is none on there at all, and we could crank up to 25-26% thereabouts, and then suddenly it does look a bit sharper and a bit cleaner. The other way of obviously doing it is we can crank a little bit of clarity as well, but it still looks pretty good. I mean, it's ISO 800. Yeah, there's a little bit of light that's been, obviously I was shooting in a lit area, but it just shows you ISO 800 is actually quite good. And I have been shooting up to ISO 1000 doing some bird photography recently because the weather, winter weather is actually pretty poor, the light. So that's that one anyway. So let's open that shot there. You can see straight away the difference. It's not quite as impacting. You can see the colours maybe aren't quite the same. Also, it's seems to be a little bit softer here. I don't know if that's just me, the focus difference, or maybe it's actually probably to do with the length of shutter speed. Maybe. Don't really know. Is that the right size? Yeah, there we go. So it's definitely, that could just be the focusing point slightly different, but anyway, it's still a usable image. There's nothing really wrong with it. Anyway, let's jump up to ISO 4000 now. This is ISO 4000. Same situation, but now we're shooting at 1/100th of a second. So you could handhold this, ISO 4000, still f5.6. So if we go auto levels, this is where it looks rubbish. And this is, where you may get this sort of image if you're shooting auto. Yeah, it does look noisy. Let's go back to how I shot it. But again, we could probably, actually, if we just do auto by previous settings, which is a little bit of blacks, a little bit of the whites drop down, and a bit of a bit of clarity turned up and a little bit of noise reduction, suddenly again it doesn't look too bad. Once it opens, take it down to the same sort of size. Exposure difference slightly different. No, in fact, I had moved the tripod slightly, but other than that, yeah, that is the better one. You can see the difference is sharper, a bit cleaner, but still, you know, I haven't really done anything to these shots, and they're still looking pretty good. Not too bad. Anyway, so that's ISO 4000, and let's jump it up to 8000. That's as high as I went, because I thought, in the real world, am I ever going to go above 8,000? Probably not. Again, ISO 8000, yeah, it's grainy, as you can see there. And if we go auto levels, you know, that's what you're going to get. It's going to be pretty horrendous to look at. If we take that away, and then do exactly what we did before, apply previous settings, as you can see there, ISO 8000 at the top. But still, again, it doesn't look all that bad. You could probably do some, I mean, you can see a little bit more grain up here now, but you could sort it out. Obviously in certain areas, if I was just to literally highlight that area and then drop the blacks down, you could deal with it. But then again, even that's not so bad. It doesn't look too bad at all. Obviously noise reduction, a little bit of sharpening, and that's it really. So the fact that you can really shoot with this small camera, I mean, you can see the difference there. You can see a little bit of grain up there in the background. That's down, obviously, remember the sensor is now a lot more sensitive to light than it was at ISO 100 as well. So you have a little bit of bokeh going on there in the background, but not very much. And a little bit there as well. But obviously it disappears because that's where I turn the back down a little bit too much maybe. But then you have got a little bit there and it does start to look a bit grainy. But little things like this, you could burn, really little burn shadows, you know, in editing. You could literally just get rid of that. So the fact you've still actually got quite a usable image here, but even at ISO 8000, I'm quite impressed by that actually. It's not bad at all. I do think actually the focus point difference is different there, because obviously where I've moved the camera, so maybe it's slightly out just because I've moved it. But still, end of the day, I'm quite impressed that, you know, it's not too bad at all. Little things. So I just thought I'd show you those guys. It was just something I just quickly did while I was messing around doing the video for the strap I was talking about. And yeah, so it just shows you that you can, in, you know, in lit areas, if you have got some light there, and it's relatively good light compared to a really dull, horrible, you know, winter's morning or something like that where the light is rubbish, you know. But if you've got a little bit of sunlight and it's you know, even if it's not that bright, you can still use that ISO. It's when you get rubbish light, you know, and some of the times I just don't bother going out because what's the point? You know, if you get an overcast day, there's no real sunshine, anything like that, you are going to get bad shots and noise grain because it's just going to happen. And to be honest, you're probably going to get that in other cameras as well, not necessarily even a full frame, because the detail and the light we need there is, I mean, that's why the flash is quite handy. The little pop-up flash does work quite well. So, you know, it's just one of those things to look at. And, you know, people diss this camera so much, saying, oh, it's only a 1-inch sensor, the noise is really bad. Well, in certain conditions, yeah, it is going to be. And obviously low light, completely low light. Obviously stars and things like that is not amazing. But it's a camera that does pretty much everything very well. So, you know, you just got to look at that sort of situation. So anyway, guys, I just thought I'd show you a little range of ISO there from 100, 800, 4000 and 8000, just so you could kind of have a look. I didn't see the point of going any higher than that, because in the real world, I think the highest I've ever really shot generally is maybe 3200. Don't really go much higher than that at all. You know, so, and my video actually that I was shooting with the strap, this strap, Peak Design strap, was actually shot at ISO 1000, just to allow a bit more depth into the video, so that I stayed in focus and also did the product as well. So it can do it pretty well. You've got to have the good light. It doesn't matter how bright the light is. It's just got to be good. So I think that's the main problem where people shoot in bad light in the first place, and that's where you're going to get bad shots at the end of the day, and that's the limitation of it, you know. So anyway, guys, don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell as well, and also if you've got any comments about this or any thoughts on ISO control, and you know, have you got good shots with this? I mean, I have noise reduction is turned off, high ISO and long exposures on my cameras, just because I find it better to deal with it later if need be than also in camera. And also remember, if you've got long exposure noise reduction turned on, if you do say a 10-minute exposure, it's going to take 10 minutes for the noise reduction to be put on the camera, so you can't do anything with the camera for 10 minutes. If you turn it off, you can take pictures after picture after picture with no delay. So anyway, guys, I shall see you soon.